Well, I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and he was asking me if it's possible if he could make his own dies, his own screw cutting dies. Well, I said, yeah, it's possible. You can make your dies. They're not difficult. Make your own dies and taps if you want, but there's no point really. Why? Well, you can get them more like any size you want. Look at Tracy Tools. You can get just about everything there. But he said that this die, what he's wanting, he's going to make himself, he said. For some scientific instruments which are about 175 years old, and all the threads, they're non-standard. They're all a different diameter and thread. The threads are the same, but the diameters is not standard. And I think there's about 25 screws. And I think they're about, I think he said, just over a quarter of an inch, an odd size, and he doesn't fancy screw cutting all these. So well, I won't fancy screw cutting them either. But you can make them, and I described a couple of methods which I've used over the years to make dies and taps. So this is going to have a go. Now it just got me thinking. I thought, well, I think I'll make a die. I don't really need it, but it might be an interesting project to show if anybody does want to make their own screw cutting die. The one I'm thinking of making is actually a common one, 7/16 British Standard brass, 26 threads per inch. All the taps and dies I've got, I do not have a 26 British Standard brass 7/16 die. I haven't really had any cause for using one, but anyway, so I've decided I think I'll make one and just show you the steps into making a simple die, and they do work. As I say, I've made dies over the years, specials, and I once made a tap and die for a job which I needed really urgently. I couldn't get to a shop to buy one. It was bank holiday, and I needed it. I needed it for a job, for what I needed to do for someone who I knew. Well, I did make them, and this is an example of tap and dies what I've made, and these are 9/16 by I think 26, 9/16 by 26. A common die, you can buy these easy enough, but if you're desperately needing one and you can't get one and it's urgent, well, you just make one. And these this is just an example, just one tap and one die, and it worked, it did the job. But I've never used it since. I've had no need, and it's only made out of what you call drill rod. That is actually made from gauge plate. It's the same stuff, but that's just your normal drill rod, silver steel we call it. No silver in it. It gets its silver coloured as silver steel from the chromium in it. But there you go. So I shall describe the method I use of making a die. It might prove to be of interest to you.
Well, I had planned to use this piece of silver steel, but I thought it was an inch in diameter, but unfortunately it's a little bit smaller, so it's not suitable for the die I'm going to produce. It won't fit in my standard die holder. So what I've decided to do is to cut a piece out of some gauge plate I have. It's a little bit thicker, but it will easily machine down in the forge or chuck, so I'm going to use that. The method I'm going to use to produce a button die is called plug and tap. What this means, you drill the holes for the cutting edges of the threads, you fill them with the bits of steel hammered in, and then drill and tap. It's an old-fashioned toolmaker's way of making a die. You knock the pins out, and then harden and temper, and the dye is more or less finished. Simple.
Now I'll just show you what a new toy I've just obtained from China. Now I've been going to get one of these for a long time, and I thought it's high time I got one. And it's a simple thing, and I think probably a lot of you have got the same thing. And it's this. This cute little thing. I've used my Eclipse magnetic bases for years, and I found them clumsy on this machine. Now the only thing is that the hole here, the clamp is a bit large for my dial indicator, which ain't a problem. I'll just make a bush and it'll fit there. But these are so versatile. They are really good, and that's all you do with them. They'll fit anywhere. Just one tightening screw, and you can position it anywhere. I think they're really great. Of course, it's a magnetic base, on-off switch, and it costs very little. And they're definitely well worth getting. When you tighten it up, it's quite rigid. You can position it anywhere you want. There's the base, and there's the on-off switch, and definitely well worth buying for what they cost. Now, as I say, I've used my Eclipse. They're very good, but they're not really practical on small machines. I mean, Eclipse are one of the top brands. I mean, names come off more or less there, but that's what that one is, an Eclipse, and I've had that since my apprenticeship. They're excellent. And here's my other one, and this is quite good. And this one has got various adjustments, but a little bit bulky for these lathes. I found them awkward to use. I have used it without a right lot of problem, but sometimes it can be a bit inconvenient. But this new baby, it's the bee's knees for me. Definitely a good investment. Well,
now, as I previously mentioned, I don't have any silver steel, the correct diameter, which is 1 inch, so I'm having to hacksaw piece out of this flat gauge plate. The thickness is just a little bit thicker than I needed, but it can be soon machined down in the forge. Well, as you can see, I'm using the old type hacksaw. You don't see many of these about these days, and I don't think many people use them, but I think these are the best kind of hacksaw you can use. You have no control with them. I do have the other type, but I still prefer this, and I find it a lot better to cut.
The first side cut. And we're down there. I just need to go down to this part here. Well, nearly there. I'll have arms like Popeye by the time I've done.
Well, I could have used my bandsaw to do this, but a little bit of exercise doesn't do any harm, and it's always good practice to be able to hacksaw. Incidentally, it's silver steel. It's a common tool steel, and it's usually in rods which have been centerless crown. Tolerances are similar to that of a drill bit. The name silver steel comes from the highly polished appearance of the rods. There's no silver in the alloy. The composition is is defined by a British Standard BS 1407, and what it contains is carbon, chromium, manganese, silicon, vanadium, phosphorus, sulphur and iron for air hardening. Now gauge plate is very similar composition. I think the chromium varies a little bit, but that's same, that hardens out, and you can use that for various cutting tools. Although gauge plate tends to be a little bit more expensive. Now silver steel, it has good machinability, and it offers high hardness and wear resistance after heat treatment. Well, that's the piece cut out, thank goodness. That's just right size now for this inch die, and it's marked out with the acrylic pen which I have. Just a matter of now getting it into forge jaw and throwing everything up and getting it machined. Well, I've got the piece here now which I've cut out of this gauge plate. It's already marked with the die. I marked it with an acrylic pen what I use. I've acquired these quite recently, and they're very good, and it doesn't rub off if you're marking out on steel. These are the type of thing, and they are really good, and they're real for marking, and they're permanent. It's like a paint almost. It's very good and very cheap. You get different nib sizes. You can get some which is very fine, and some which are fairly coarse, like this one. This is a coarse one. What I'm going to do now is just set this up in the forge jaw, and then we'll get it faced off and turn circular. It's just a matter now of just holding it in the forge jaw. I shall use the trusty old scribing block. Quite a long way out there. It's quite near enough. Well, that's near enough. There's quite a bit to come off the OD, so that should suffice. Now the diameter of the die is approximately 1 inch, or just slightly, a couple of thou below. They're not critical. We'll just check to see we've got enough, and we have with 50 thou on the OD, so it's safe now to face off and turn the OD down to the correct diameter. These cheap spray bottles are ideal for coolant, for spraying the coolant on. You can aim or you can adjust the nozzle so it's a spray. They're very good.
just cost £1. Very useful. That's the spray setting. I prefer the solid dip jet. Well, that's turned out okay now. It's a matter of just turning the OD down.
Well, that's the blank fully machined up now and ready for drilling. What I'm going to use is my combi dividing head, the rotary table dividing head combination, which I built up some years ago. I'm only going to use this because it's already set up on the machine for a job I've just completed, so it's more convenient. You don't need a dividing head to drill these dies. It's just a matter of centre pop, making sure there's a centre pop in the middle, scribe a pitch circle to where the holes are going to be drilled. It's just a little bit of trial and error. I'm doing a five hole die this time. You can do a 4 or even a 3 depending on the size of the die, or you could even do a 6. It just depends what suits. It's just a matter really of drilling these holes so that it creates a cutting edge for the threads. There's nothing really elaborate about them. What I shall do is put this in my dividing head, and then I'll just go around with a centre drill and just pop each hole what I'm going to drill, and then I shall use just an ordinary drill and drill through. But as I say, you can just do this on your ordinary drill. As I've just mentioned, it's just a matter really of scribing a pitch circle and marking out the holes equally. They don't want to be misaligned. They really do need to be equal. So if you're not using a dividing head, just make sure you pop one centre pot where the first hole goes, and then just equally divide it around the pitch circle to make sure that they are equal. You're supposed to actually ream the holes when you've drilled them, but I've never done this. I never found it necessary. Well, as you can see, I've got the blank mounted in the chuck there on the rotary table combination. I'm just bringing the table up to just pop the centre drill there. I'm going to go around and mark out 5 divisions on this, and then I shall drill through. The problem is with this machine, there's no quill, so you don't get that sensitive feel like you do with a quill feed. I have to feed up with the table. Although I've done this for years, and I've never had any trouble with it. And you do actually get a decent feel. I've drilled quite a few things over the years, and I've never had any trouble really. Now to get 5 divisions, which I'm using on this combination, it requires 18 turns on this plate, which is quite a lot really, but it's quite good. It's pretty accurate actually. I do have a full-size dividing head with all the plates and attachments, but it's so heavy, and this is a little bit more convenient, so a lot lighter, and it's still pretty rigid for what it is. Now I've ground this drill to 60 degrees and I've point thinned it almost like a centre drill. I find when I grind drills like this, they seem to go through tough steel a lot easier than your standard drill point. Well, as I previously mentioned, on this setup, it's 18 turns on this dividing head. 18 turns to make 5 divisions.
Well, that's the 5 holes all drilled.
Well, that's that job done. It's just a matter now of making the small pins so I can hammer them into these holes. The pins are hammered in as tight as possible. They recommend that you actually ream the holes, but I've never ever done that. I've never found it necessary. I just make the pins a good tight hammer fit, really. So that's the next job to do. Well, it's a simple, straightforward job now, making these pins. I'm having to turn down the ODs to make them a tight hammer fit into the holes. And I've just then part them off the length with the rear parting off tool post. Well, these are the pins already machined now and ready to be hammered into the holes in the die, all pre-drilled. They say you should actually ream the holes, but I've never found it necessary. I just hammer them in, make sure that they are hammered in tight, and then it won't cause any problems when you drill and tap the blank. Just matter then of punching them out when it's being done.
Well, the next job now is to knock the pins into these holes. So you might be wondering why we're putting pins in. Well, once these pins are all knocked in and tight, it's then possible to drill and tap the centre part for the actual cutting portion of the die. That's one. I've got 2 of them. They do have a slight taper lead on the front, so it does make it a little bit easier to knock them in.
I think I'm tempting fate here with my fingers being so close to this hammer. But fortunately I never finished up with any black fingernails.
Now it's just a matter of drilling and tapping for the size, and the pins will then be knocked out. Very old-fashioned way of doing dies, but it's a traditional way which toolmakers have used for many years for doing odd dies and odd sizes, whatever.